I gotta tell you, this episode rocked my world doing the research for this and getting ready to talk about this on today's show. The subject matter for today is TikTok causing an epidemic of Tourette's in young women. Now, as we go through the research and we talk about this, we're gonna find that it's actually not Tourette's. It's a condition called functional neurological disorder. But before we get into anything, I wanna show you what I saw that sparked this conversation in my brain and sparked this question for me. So here's this video compilation we made for you.
I have Tourette syndrome. In this video, I will be reading some of Room on the Broom with Tics.
Obviously, been ticking all day. Sorry.
Oh, hey, listen. Hey, listen. Whoa.
We're around someone who is actively ticking. Your mom. I love you.
You can count on me. You can count on me. My hey! Oh my god.
Hello.
I live like this every day. You. And I'm here to spread awareness about what I deal with.
So yeah, these are the videos that I was seeing, and I kind of want to talk about how I got into wanting to discuss this subject matter and how it sort of intrigued me in this way. I was scrolling through TikTok and getting recommended on my For You page, which is, for those of you unfamiliar with the app, a page that curates content that they think you'd be interested in. I was getting on my For You page a lot of videos of girls with the hashtag Tourette's or hashtag body tics or hashtag tics and Tourette's. And I was watching these girls experiencing these symptoms like the one you just saw in those videos, and they were having millions and millions of likes. One girl in particular, her name is Epidemic, is very popular on the platform. I believe she has over 10 million followers on TikTok, and most of her content is her filming these episodes that she has of her tics and of her Tourette's. Now, in no way, as a disclaimer here, we're going to place blame on any of these girls for creating these videos on social media. We're not going to accuse any of them of faking this condition or anything like that. I'm just genuinely interested in why this has become such a massive phenomenon and if this is something that is recognized by doctors. Because I got a message from Taylor one day back when we were working on the show, and he just sent me an article and said, "This is so weird. I'm reading this article about how Tourette's, the syndrome, is growing among young women in America. And that's not something that is typical whatsoever. It's not the typical demographic for this disorder, which we will get into and talk about." And I immediately thought, TikTok. I'm seeing it all over TikTok. These girls are getting millions and millions of likes. I cannot stress that enough. And that's where my brain immediately went to. That's the connection that I made. So I wanted to really delve into this and see, A, is that an accurate connection to be making? Is it something that medical professionals are recognizing? What kind of harm, if so, is this doing to not only the US population, but countries outside of the US? And is this just a phenomenon that's happening with young girls? And if so, what is causing it? Because I by no means think that young women are just going on TikTok and seeing these things and immediately developing this disorder and adopting it. I think there has to be some sort of catalyst that is happening. So let's get into it and start talking about this. Now, first, I want to show you really what I'm talking about when I say this is a phenomenon, a trending phenomenon on TikTok. Now, if you go on TikTok, I'm on the desktop right now, and I'll have to go on my phone as well at some point to show you what's really going on here. But on the desktop, if you go to TikTok and you search Tourette's, look at the videos that pop up. And the very first video has 35.8 million views. This is Evie Meg, the young girl that I was talking about, who has become quite popular making videos of this. And we'll talk about the response that she's gotten for doing this and these sort of accusations that I think have been wrongfully thrown at her. But the next one, 7.5 million views, 2.1 million views, 2.8 million views down here, 5.8 million views on this one at the bottom. Millions and millions of views on these videos that translate to millions of likes, millions of comments, and millions of followers. And typically, as you can see as we're scrolling through these, not young males, which is the typical demographic for Tourette's, but young women. And if you continue to load on the website, you'll see more and more and more and more of people filming these tic episodes and then posting them online. Now, if you go and search the Tourette's hashtag on your phone on the TikTok app and look at how many views it's amassed, over 5 billion views, not million, billion views on Tourette's content. Similarly, when you search tics, billions and billions of views on these content lines, and girls who are becoming official influencers and content creators with nothing more than posting these videos on the internet. So I'll show you Evie Meg's page. Now, this isn't her TikTok, but this is her Instagram, and it's translated to her Instagram. She has 782,000 followers. The top descriptor in her bio being neurologically different, as well as her pronouns, but that's a whole separate thing that we won't get into. And again, videos and videos of her tics. Here's an award that she has also received from the National Diversity Awards. We can see this video.
Hi everybody, I have something very exciting to tell you. If you don't already know, I have been nominated for a National Diversity Award, oh my god, in the category of Positive Role Model in Disabilities, I believe it's called. I still can't believe it. When I got notified, I was just so happy because I have really tried to make a difference in the disabled community, and it's sort of like being rewarded for that, I suppose, because I've been
So an interesting thing there, to receive an award for being an advocate and somebody who is bringing awareness to a disorder on the internet. By no means do I think that there is anything wrong with that. I do, however, question what the goal is, maybe not even goal, what the repercussions of something like that can be, and how social media is influencing other young women, and even subliminally so. So let's talk about the scope of this issue and what is happening in what I think to be response to this. So let's talk about it first. It's not Tourette syndrome, even though that's how people would recognize it, and that's what somebody would call it if they saw the tics like this. It's actually something called functional neurological disorder. And I want to go through how Tourette's and functional neurological disorder are different, because I think it's important to make that distinction in what we're talking about here. So Tourette's is typically seen in young boys, and this manifests, of course, in their young, typically prepubescent lives with tics, blinking, shoulder shrugging, and the occasional verbalization of certain words, although they're not often content-based, like we'll see with some of these girls screaming things that come to their mind, and in whatever they're sort of seeing, they scream out or yelling suddenly. That's not the typical manifestation of Tourette's in these young boys. And with Tourette's, it tends to be a long-term to a lifetime condition, whereas what we're seeing with these girls with functional neurological disorder, it is a sudden onset, often acute disorder that can be handled or taken care of with time, according to experts. Now, also with these girls, we see the ability for them to choose tics, anticipate the tics that they're going to have and the things that they're going to say, while with young boys with Tourette's, we don't see that with them as typically. We also see something called tic contagion, or at least what I'm coining it to be, where these girls, either through meeting in real life with this disorder or seeing other girls through social media, are adopting the same tics. So saying the same things, doing the same whistles, doing the same blinking, the same head jerking, often violently hitting themselves. And these are things that you can adopt through being around other people with these tics or seeing them online, which is how most of these girls are being exposed to this. And it's important to emphasize the true harm that can be done here. This is not just a harmless thing where girls are just screaming things and saying whatever comes to mind and ticking and shuddering and things like that. These girls often can't drive. Some of them can't go to school or get kicked out of school because of the disruption. They are unable to work. Some of them are hitting themselves very violently, experiencing seizures that completely make them dissociate and hurt themselves and harm themselves as well. You can see really extreme manifestations of this particular disorder. And another difference between this and Tourette's is that the girls are developing something called coprolalia, which makes them scream obscenities, which is so often what we think when we hear the word Tourette's. You hear people screaming curse words or saying F you or just saying really disgusting sexual things that come to the mind and they just blurt that out. But that's not typical of Tourette's and not with young boys either. But these girls, if you go through these videos on TikTok and you just simply search the hashtag, of course do so with caution, and you look through, are saying the exact same things, are saying the exact same profanities, making the exact same hand gestures, and doctors are actually finding that girls in the US are watching British influencers on TikTok with these tic-like syndromes and developing British tics. So they're saying their tics in a British accent. They're saying the exact same words as what is said in the TikToks. We have Evie Meg, the girl that I showed you, her Instagram, who she is, again, very, very prevalent on TikTok, made a TikTok video that got millions and millions of views where she said the word beetroot. And suddenly, doctors all across the US are getting young women coming into their clinic with a beetroot tic in a British accent. So concerning. Now, let's get into this and talk about this, because I saw it and I thought there's got to be doctors recognizing that this is happening now. This cannot be something that has been normal and I just didn't know about or had not seen on social media to this point. And again, it is very specific to TikTok, although now, because we are building influencers on that platform, it is branching out to other forms of social media like Instagram. So people.com wrote this article saying doctors say the rise in tic-like behaviors among teen girls may be connected to TikTok. And it seems like doctors are getting a massive influx of patients, not just in the US, in Canada, UK, and Australia as well. They are starting to study these patients. And what they found to be a through line is that the girls tend to be about 15 to 25 years old. And they all spend a significant amount of time, not just on social media, but on TikTok as a platform specifically. And when I say that this is jumping like crazy, growing exponentially with diagnosis of this functional neurological disorder, while at the Johns Hopkins Tourette Center, the number of patients reporting tic-like behaviors has jumped from 2 to 3% to 10 to 20%. 10 to 20% in the last couple of years. And we've heard from doctors, or at least I've read from doctors, that we're seeing maybe 1 to 2 young women with tic-like behavioral problems coming into their clinic a year. 1 to 2 young women a year experiencing these difficulties, and now they are experiencing upwards of 60 young female patients coming in with these problems. Again, this is not just in the US, this is also in the UK, it's also in Germany, it's also in Australia, and again, these women are coming in with similar tics, meaning, of course, I can post a social media video of me going through this disorder, and millions of people will see that, not just in the US, but across the world. And now girls are adopting it, which was so weird to just sort of have this sort of this inkling into maybe this is happening, and then you go and read about it and find that medical professionals are also jumping on this as well. And what doctors are advising is that we really start to watch what young people are doing on social media and contain the amount of time that they're doing it. Many doctors saying that just even general screen time, watching streaming services, watching TV, movies, listening to music, being on other apps other than social media is far better and far less damaging for these young girls who are doing this and developing this specific problem. Now, another thing that I did when I was looking into this was actually going through the comment section on a lot of these videos, which you can do as well, again, on TikTok, on the app. Just search the Tourette's hashtag and look through some of the comments. And I was somewhat shocked to see what I was seeing. A lot of other young girls hopping into the comments and saying, you know, I'm having the exact same experiences you're having. I'm saying the exact things that you are saying. And I had a sudden onset of this. I woke up in the morning one day and I suddenly had these tics that are now not going away. And now I'm having to seek medical treatment for this particular condition. Another thing was girls commenting and saying, I already had Tourette's or functional neurological disorder, FND, we'll refer to it for the duration of this video. I already had this disorder, but now that I'm watching your TikToks, it is getting worse, and I am developing new tics that represent the ones that you have. So adopting the tics from those videos, as I said prior. Also, a lot of encouraging compliments to these girls, which I completely understand. It's a hard disorder to have, but the compliments in particular, I thought were strange. And you can let me know in the comments. Maybe we'll put out a poll. Do you think these particular compliments are strange? Saying, your tic is so cute, or I love the way that you have that good morning tic, or that F you tic, or the tics are so adorable. Even some girls going as far as to say, I wish I had this condition myself. It makes you so cute. Glamorizing this neurological problem that needs medical treatment on a lifelong basis if this is something that you keep for the rest of your life. So young women hopping on and saying this is something that makes you unique, this is something that makes you stand out, and not only that, it's something that makes you adorable and beautiful, and I wish I had this disorder myself. And lastly, girls saying, oh, I struggle with this as well, but because I have OCD or anxiety or major depressive disorder or ADHD or ADD, which we also know is growing exponentially within the young generation here in America. So there seems to be a link between those disorders and developing tics as well. So again, I saw all of this and I thought this was crazy. I thought that it was insane to even hear about a phenomenon like this spreading so quickly, because this has only been happening over the past couple of years, or at least in the way that doctors felt it needed to be researched, because it was starting to shock them, the amount of patients that they were seeing coming in with this. Now, we are going to look at this video. It's from The Doctors, which is a TV show that you may or may not be familiar with, where they bring on a panel of doctors and they discuss trending things, trending topics, health fads, things that they are seeing in their own practices. And they made an episode, I believe, let's check, in October of 2021, so the end of last year, discussing this exact issue. Is TikTok influencing tic disorders? And they brought on a neurologist to talk about this, and I wanted you to hear what she had to say.
Let's dive deeper into this topic with the neurologist who helped crack the Leroy girls case, Dr. Jen McVig. Welcome, Dr. McVig.
Hey, Doc.
Thank you. Hi.
Nice to have you. So what's most concerning to you about this TikTok trend that's being documented in the billions worldwide?
It's scary because it kind of has this reminiscent tone of what we went through in Leroy. The hardest part about this is that when you have an episode of mass psychogenic illness, usually it is contained in an area, so a school or a factory, if you look through history. But this is something that is projected throughout the world. So from a physician's standpoint, to try to control or diagnose appropriately or treat these people, the thing that is most concerning to me is it is so dispersed. How do you control the situation when it's so widespread?
Dr. McVig, what are you seeing in your practice when it comes to this new outbreak of tics?
I've had several kids come in and it's so much like Leroy, because they'll come in and say, you know, last night I felt fine. I woke up this morning and I started to have tics, which isn't really the way Tourette disorder or tic disorder truly progresses. This is usually something that progresses over the period of time. A lot of these kids are coming in with corporalia, which is swearing. This is something that is incredibly rare in Tourette's disorder. We don't usually see that, so very uncommon. Also, many of the words they're saying, just like that one person, the comments, it's British terms. So I had one patient say beetroot, which is not a common thing that people say in the United States. And so it really does not fit with a typical picture of tic disorder diagnosis or Tourette disorder diagnosis. And a lot of them have anxiety on top of it too.
So again, this is a phenomenon that is being recognized medically now, and they are linking it to TikTok. And I want to hone in on something that she just said there. We're going to get to the phrase that she used called mass psychogenic illness, and whether or not, A, is that what this is, and B, has this ever happened before? And the answer is going to shock, at least I think it will shock you. It shocked me. But she mentioned she's getting patients coming in saying beetroot, and I thought, I've heard that before. Where have I heard that? And it's from none other than Evie Meg, who is this British TikToker with Tourette's. And I believe this is the video where she says it. I'm going to play it for you guys.
But hippopotamus. Beetroot.
Oh, beetroot in a British accent, which is what this American doctor was seeing in her clinic. And this video has 6.9 million views, and again 39 million views on it, and 6.9 million likes on this video. And suddenly we're seeing this surge of American girls saying British tics in these clinics. So all this to say, very concerning phenomenon, and you would hope that if TikTok has something to do with it, that people start to recognize this and become cognizant of it. And I fear that there's not enough education or studying of this particular issue to let people be informed of this. And now you have millions of young people on these platforms watching this content day in and day out who have anxiety and depression that are susceptible to this sort of suggestive social learning and development of this psychogenic illness. Now, let's talk about what that even is. What is a mass psychogenic illness? So apparently, this is a phenomenon that happens in times of very peak stress, as well as anxiety, depression, social discomfort. All of these things can spark or make you more susceptible to developing a mass psychogenic illness, which is essentially a bunch of people all at the same time developing an illness, be it a rash, a virus, something like tics, dizziness, fatigue, fainting, but a bunch of people developing this all at once due to anxiety, stress, depression, and a sudden catalyst. So in this case, the catalyst is the exorbitant amount of TikTok content that, in my opinion, can glamorize, or at least in the comments, glamorize this condition and markets it to young people as something that is unique, is quirky, is cute, and does not really show the harm of it. Although I'm not going to blame the influencers who post this stuff. Evie often posts the seizures that she experiences, the very violent tics that she experiences that I'm sure cause quite a bit of harm towards her and to her body. And I don't think that anybody who is posting this sort of content is conscious of wanting other people to develop this disorder alongside them. Although we will talk about maybe later a few girls that are making a community out of this disorder and making something called Tic Buddies, which I can only imagine if you are a lonely teenage girl on TikTok who feels completely isolated and confused about who you are, and now you see these people with this disorder that makes them unique, making friend groups and developing buddies. Maybe that might influence you, whether you're conscious of it or not. But a lot of the doctors who are looking into this cited social learning and social adoption for why these girls are starting to have all these symptoms in tandem. And if you ever taken a basic psychology course, you probably heard about the Bobo the Clown experiment, where essentially they had a room that had a camera in it and was completely closed off, and they would send kids into it with this inflatable clown, and you can sort of see him on my screen here. Bobo the Clown. And they would allow the kids to interact with this inflatable clown. And without seeing anything prior, the kids were nice. Maybe they touched it. Maybe they stayed away from them. Some kids hugged the clown. And then they did a separate group of experiments where they showed the kids videos of an adult going into the room and aggressively beating the clown or showing some sort of violent tendency towards this clown. And when allowed into the room, kids emulated exactly what they saw the adults do prior, which is just a social learning mechanism that we all have as humans. We all are very good at emulating and mimicking and watching others and adopting what they do, which seems to be a clear connection to this particular disorder, girls watching and adopting exactly what others are doing. Now, immediately I thought, this can't be the first time that this ever happened. We have a phrase for this mass psychogenic illness. When has this happened before? And I started reading into it. So apparently in 1983 in the West Bank, there was obviously quite a bit of conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis, but there was this sort of story going around, as well as a hysteria around the possibility of chemical warfare. And many people were horrified by the idea of this and thought about the fainting that comes along with that, the dizziness that comes along with it, and developed a lot of stress, anxiety, and depression surrounding the subject matter. And apparently in 1983, the West Bank had an epidemic of fainting, and not just fainting with random people in the population, but specifically among young women who experienced anxiety around the matter. They were so anxious, they were able to manifest the symptoms within their own body and actually faint. It led to over 900 hospitalizations in the West Bank. So this is another case of mass psychogenic hysteria happening somewhere else. We also, in Portugal, saw this happen with a popular soap opera. So there's this story called The Strawberries with Sugar virus outbreak that happened in Portugal, and it was an example of this mass hysteria happening on another occasion, where essentially this soap opera featured a scene or an episode where a virus was spread that created rashing and just other physical manifestations. And suddenly, I believe the next day or the next week, tons of young people started to develop this very same virus and this very same rash to the tune of over 300 individuals, all sparked from being exposed to this through their media and through entertainment in this specific soap opera. And if you go and look up, again, mass psychogenic illness, you can find that there's so many cases of this happening with involuntary laughing, involuntary dancing, fainting, rashes, delusions. It's something that can occur, I wouldn't say very often, but it does occur, and it is something that has been studied naturally, and people have been made aware of this happening, and now it's just seemingly happening on TikTok. And it goes to show really the wonder that is the human mind, but how suggestible we are, especially in moments of vulnerability. And like I said, these things don't just happen because a girl saw this on TikTok and has now suddenly developed tics. It happens because there is an underlying condition or problem, and then these videos that they see serve as a catalyst and sort of catapult them into FND. So a lot of doctors are speculating on what the underlying problem is here, and it seems to be the COVID-19 pandemic. That seems to be the through line that they found, is that this initial jump in cases and in the patients that they're seeing did not happen until the pandemic news came out, until we went into lockdown, and it seems to be in countries that are, one, heavily attached to TikTok as a social media platform, but also went through strict lockdown measures, as I'm sure, much of the world did. But the US, Canada, Australia, Germany. And these girls are, experiencing a significant amount of loneliness through through this lockdown, not being in school, not being able to do extracurricular activities, wearing masks, all this fun stuff that they had to do as the pandemic regulations came through. They're also experiencing an uncertainty and hopelessness, not being able to know what's going to happen with their lives, hearing the reports of people dying around them, and generally just not knowing when life is going to go back to normal. And you have to think that when we suddenly have a normal life one day, and then the day after we've deviated from everything that's normal in this sudden rush of fear and terror and questioning of not knowing what's going on, and your life is completely changed. Of course, depression and anxiety and stress is going to come out of that, and that's what we saw. We talked so often, or at least on the previous show on Will and Amala Live, we talked so often about how there are so many unsung victims of this COVID-19 pandemic, children being the most important of them, who people will never have accountability for what they've done to them. The loss of the schooling and education, kids that now have speech issues because they were taken out of school or they weren't able to see people's mouths and see their expression and speak to them. Kids who developed mental disorders, which is playing into this exact phenomenon that we are talking about today. Kids that were victims of domestic abuse from being home all day, victims of suicide. There are so many things that we have not recognized and brought forth responsibility and accountability to the people who created these situations, and we need to. And this is yet another one. And you might look at this and go, okay, well, it's just girls who are twitching on camera. How horrible can that possibly be? Think about it. It's just that now. And again, there are severe cases of this where girls cannot drive, they cannot work, they cannot go to school, they are harming themselves accidentally with these tics. And I do believe that a lot of the girls that are making these videos truly have this disorder, and doctors are in congruency on that as well. They're seeing these patients, they are actually evaluating them. It's not just something that they are witnessing on the internet that some girl could be faking. They're seeing these patients in the clinic and recognizing that they have no control over expressing these tics and saying the things that they say. So if this can be born out of what the pandemic caused and what social media has done, what else can grow out of this? And what does it say to us as a society that we are just standing by and allowing this to happen? And that's not me saying that TikTok needs to come out and do something about this, or that the government needs to come out and do something about this. I'm saying that we need to do something about this. And one is educating ourselves, because this is something that I had no idea was happening, and I'm glad to bring it to you and let you guys know what I think happened here. And much of this is speculative, because again, this has only been happening for the last 2 or 3 years now. And doctors are still looking into this, although it seems to me that they can draw clear lines of correlation between what they're seeing on the internet, the pandemic at large, the mental health trends with social media, that these three things are not really working well together and that they can be causing these problems. But we have to think about what young people are seeing on the internet. Again, any screen time is better than the social media screen time that they're getting right now and the things that they're seeing. And this is not the only disorder that I'm seeing being held up by platforms like this. Every time I go on TikTok and I scroll through, maybe an hour through, I will get an ad for ADHD medication or asking me whether or not I think I should be evaluated for ADHD. And this is something that continuously pops up as you scroll through. And I will be the first to say that I use social media quite often. I'm coming at you from a social media platform right now. And looking into this has forced me to look into myself and go, oh my gosh, I'm looking at this too much, and I need to reconsider my own presence on social media platforms. Although you know how I feel about that. If we are not there expressing our values, they're getting the wrong values. They're getting this sort of content and being completely overcome by this content. So I think if it's going to be there, maybe somebody needs to be there expressing these values. Although the more that I hear about this stuff, the worse and worse that it gets. And we have to look at ourselves as a culture that women having this disorder is glamorized. And if we acknowledge that victimhood and oppression is very much currency in this day and age. I used the currency when I was 17 years old and working for the left. I loved being a victim. I loved making myself unique in that sense, and I propped that up, and I wanted to share that with everybody and show that to everybody. Is that an underlying driver in the excess amount of content for this particular disorder? Because there's a lot, and people will say, well, I'm just bringing awareness. There seems to be plenty of awareness in videos of young girls doing this. So are we glamorizing and fetishizing mental and neurological disorders? Seems to me we are. And like I said, you can go and search through these comments, and the comments are, this is so cool, this is so unique, this is so adorable, I wish I was you. That doesn't sound like anything other than glamorization and fetishization to me. It seems like we are harboring and fostering a culture that wants these things to grow and come to the light. And if we've allowed that to be currency, if we have allowed victimhood and disorder to be currency, of course, people are going to create it any way that they can. And we've talked about social media and the detrimental effects that it has, particularly with young women. And today's episode does focus on young women, although there are many detrimental effects for men, young men, older women as well, using these platforms. But if you've read any of the research into social media, the algorithmic nature of it, the scientists that they hire to just make sure you are constantly plugged in and that you feel deprived when you are not on social media, you know that it creates mental health issues. Jean Twenge is a psychologist who's done an extensive workup on social media and its connection to depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues specifically for young women. And the correlation is utterly clear. So not only can social media rob you of agency when it comes to your mind and being able to use your mind in the way it was meant to be used and use it properly and use it with freedom. And it creates these restrictions for you of mental illness, of depression, anxiety, panic disorder, eating disorders, and a lot of young women as well. So social media is the breeding ground for these sort of problems. And you go on it, and you can go on it with a completely healthy brain and leave with a depressed one. And then when you return, they go, are you feeling lonely, depressed? Here's a tic group of young girls who develop these tics due to anxiety or OCD and depression. And now they found community in it. And look at all the amazing comments that they've gotten. Girls are not going to college, which I don't even think you need to go to college, but they're not pursuing careers. They are making careers out of influencing with their disorder, which again is a choice that people make. It's a choice for people to watch the content, to consume the content, to pay them to make this content, to sponsor them for the content, and that's not a choice that I would strip from anyone. But it speaks to where we are at as a society, that somebody can simply make videos of an illness that influence other people to either consciously or subconsciously develop that illness as well, and then get millions and millions of followers by doing so. And I thought really at the outset of this that maybe this was just a trend that I was seeing with my eyes, and there just happened to be a lot of young girls with this disorder, and I just happened to come across them on TikTok, and it's not really that big of a deal, and it's not something that is new, but it very much is something that is new. So we have to be vigilant about what we are seeing. And I think even going through this for the past couple of weeks and watching all these videos has maybe gotten to me in some way. I'm like, this is making me feel like I'm having psychosomatic problems here. And yeah, so if this is the start, if this is the first thing that I'm recognizing from social media, other than, the eating disorders, the depression, the anxiety, what's next? Does this get worse? And I fear that the answer is yes, because the more the time goes on, the more connected we get to the internet, to social media, and the younger and younger the threshold is for joining social media. And we know the younger you are, the more susceptible you are, the more malleable you are, the more easier it is to influence you. And these things are going to start to develop younger and younger. That is my hypothesis. I could very well be wrong. I just don't feel as though after seeing all this that that is wrong. I think the younger you get on, the worse the outcomes are going to be for you. And we are fostering a culture that's making social media presence younger and younger and younger. And Taylor said something earlier when we were discussing this topic that, and I'll end on this note, it'll be a shorter show today because this was just a subject matter that I wanted you guys to be up to date on and see what I was seeing, that this is robbing you of your freedom. These young girls, if speculatively they have gotten this illness because they were introduced to it on TikTok, because I don't see any other way that you would have developed this without being introduced to it, specifically in the way that they are developing it, mimicking other people, getting the exact same tics across country lines, switching accents to adopt these tics. They have been robbed of their freedom. And unconsciously so, because they did not know signing up for a TikTok platform that meant that your mental health could be put under siege and that you could develop a neurological disorder that may never leave you. I don't think these young 15 to 25-year-old girls knew that when they signed up for TikTok, that was something that they could be signing up for. And look what has happened. And a lot of them will never know that this app was in part responsible for what they are feeling. And maybe they would have had depression and anxiety because of this entire pandemic and everything that happened. And I would not write that off at all. I'm sure that is happening, and we know that it's happening. And again, that's one of those are the unsung victims of this whole pandemic and all the lockdowns and regulations. But watching these videos, seeing these girls, seeing the love, the glamorization, the fetishization of their disorders was a catalyst to adopt them. And they will never know what they've been robbed of. And hopefully it's not their entire freedom and their entire body autonomy when it comes to the rest of their lives and doing things that normal young girls should be doing. So I want us all to keep that in mind. And it's something that I'm, again, going to have to be so cognizant of, because I spend a lot of time on social media and I need to stop, because it robs you of your time alone. And Dennis says social media is a form of junk food for your brain. And while junk food can sometimes be okay in moderation, it is not okay to use it to the extent that we are using it. So it's already robbed me of time. I don't want it to rob me of anything else. And this is an indication that it very well could. I am most likely no different from these other girls. I just happened to see it and see it before anything happened to me, luckily. So hopefully you're all aware of that now. Hopefully this was an interesting episode for you guys to listen to, and it gave you something to think about. I'm curious, if you guys are on TikTok, were you ever given videos of this disorder? Have you recognized this and maybe thought about this and wanted somebody to speak about it? Is this something that you even thought was a possibility with this mass psychogenic disorder? Because it was something that I had never, ever heard of, and I'm going to be doing a lot more reading into, because I still cannot fathom a large group of people all adopting the exact same symptoms at the exact same time. So I'm very curious to know more. I did a lot of speculating on what I think is happening here. If you have a different theory and you think that all of this is happening with these young girls for a different reason, and maybe there's another influence that I am missing or something that I didn't speak about, leave that in the comments down below. I'm going to be going into them and reading them tonight and hopefully responding to a bunch of you, and we'll go back and forth and talk about this, because I am so intrigued and saddened to see what I have seen today. So leave that down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. This has been a sort of different episode for Unapologetic Live, and let me know if you like the specific subject matter, if we should talk more about this, because I have plenty to say when it comes to social media and its effects on our current generation and just our population as a whole. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single day when we go live. That is 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, coming at you with the dinner table, hopefully on the East Coast. And yeah, notify. Get that notification bell on. You'll know every single day when I go live. And if you guys want to know the topics that I'm going to talk about before I go live on any given day, go ahead and follow me on Instagram at the Amala Epidemic. I'm constantly posting stories, giving you behind the scenes of us working on the show and telling you what we're talking about, and also getting your input so that you can be featured on the show through polls or questionnaires and things like that. So join me on Instagram as well. I will be back tomorrow, and tomorrow we have a special episode called Devil's advocate. I've been wanting to do debates. I've said that ever since I got hired here at PragerU. Little did I know debates would be few and far between. I've done one debate since working here, and that was with Mark Lamont Hill on the Black News channel, which I always say I don't know why there needs to be a Black News channel. Is there a difference between Black news and white news? If there is, I haven't heard it. Maybe because I'm half Black and half white, so all news is news to me. But yeah, I did a debate with him, and I thought we need to do debates on this show. And since as of late, I have not found a leftist to come on. If I do, we will do that on the show. I thought, let me play the leftist because I used to be one. So I am bringing on Brandon Tatum for tomorrow's show, former police officer, host of the Tatum Report and the B. Tatum Show. And I'm playing a leftist and talking to him and asking him questions from a left-leaning perspective about policing in America, systemic racism in policing, and Black Lives Matter, getting his responses on that. And we go back and forth and duke it out for a little bit. So if you guys want to see me play my old leftist self, a much nicer version of my old leftist self, make sure that you are watching tomorrow's show at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I will see you guys there tomorrow.